Hi everyone, this is Monaro and welcome to my channel. Earlier today I was watching Tina Foyle's video on her A Song of Ice and Fire story or Game of Thrones story, and it's inspired me to kind of come on and kind of do a video talking about my A Song of Ice and Fire Game of Thrones story. I first heard about the Game of Thrones series when I came back from deployment. Um, I happened to be watching HBO, and then a commercial came on for a Game of Thrones. They were doing a rerun of the first season. I believe it was like early January 2011, somewhere around there. And so, or it might have been, yeah, it was January of 2011. And that's what I remember. And so I watched that first episode, and I think I was watching a commentary, and they said that it was based on George R.R. Martin books, The Game of Thrones. And so once I found out, I quickly went to my iPad and looked it up, and actually saw that there was four books, and then so I downloaded all four books, and so from that point on, I started reading the stories, and it seemed like all I was doing was reading. I was just really engrossed in the books, and I think I got through all four of the books, from A Game of Thrones to A Feast for Crows. I think it took me like about a month. Yeah, about a month or a little over a month to get through the whole thing. And then I didn't read A Dance of Dragons until closer towards the summer. It might have been like late spring, early summer, May, June time frame. And so after reading the books, I don't know how exactly, but I came across AA podcasts on YouTube, and um, the first video from them that I have been watching was they were doing show reviews. And so I watched their show review, and from watching their show review, I never bothered to watch the show. I would just watch their show review because they would be so thorough in their reviews of the show. I never um, had to watch it. But but they were also doing history. Um, they had a podcast, and so when I found out that they had a podcast, and I went to their and I subscribed to their podcast, I also found out that they were doing history um, video. They would do history, the history of a lot of the characters in the books. So I started listening to their podcast, and that's how I learned. And from listening to their podcast, I would go back and reread, not the whole story, but I would reread different character POVs, and then and kind of put, you know, a lot of what they're saying. And so it when I went back to reread it, the things that they were talking about were jumping out more to me, and then I became even more engrossed in the story. And then from watching them, they would do collaborations with different people, and so I started watching the people that they were doing collabs with. They did with Jeff Hartline. They did with I want to say his name was Steve. And then from from reading some of their essays and stuff, uh, I and then I started seeing other people doing videos, and I came across Comic Book Girl 19. I came across Emergency Awesome, and then I came across um, Tony Teflon, and then from Tony Teflon, I also came across Bartube, and then There was one other person. I can't remember who. No, it was a podcast that I came across. I came across Radio Westeros, and then from Radio Westeros, they usually allow people to do adverts on their podcast, and so from their from their podcast, I came across Close the Door and Come Here podcast. I came across Davos Fingers podcast, and from Tony Teflon, I came across Don Willie, Don the Kraken Wit, Sir L.T. Giles, and then I came across the Small Council and everybody that's in the Small Council. That's James of Thrones, his mom LaDonna, Tina Foyle, T Baby, and then from from Teflon, Tony Teflon TV, I came across the Hype Squatch, James Bushell, uh, Jerry the Steamboat, I'm sorry, I'm butchering this. Jerry the Targaryen Steamboat, again Don Willie, and then I also came across Red Team Review. I came across Alt Shift X and Civilization X, and it every day I am coming across new people. Now I'm also on Tumblr. I started posting blogs on Tumblr, and then I came across Charlie Westeros from watching Charlie in Westeros from watching the Small Council, and so from watching his videos, I came across Amino, and then I went to Amino. I first started posting blogs. I decided to start posting my own reviews for this current season, which is the first season I've been watching from the beginning, since they're past the books a little bit. So I started posting blogs and posting my thoughts. And he usually does like a after show chat, and from there I decided, well, why don't I just start a YouTube channel so that I can talk about my thoughts. So last week I decided to just turn on a recorder and just start talking about my thoughts about the episode. I didn't even start from the first episode. I think I started from episode 6. So, because it wasn't my intent to ever come onto YouTube to talk about the show. I just decided to do it on a whim because I wanted to express my thoughts. I found that, there's always somebody who wants to talk Game of Thrones, and because of that, I've been active on a lot of the different chats for other people's videos, which was something that I never did before. I mean, I've been following this fandom since 2011, and I would never comment, and I would never say anything. I would just, listen to what other people had to say. I would read other people's comments. I would see other people's questions, and that's just basically, I would be like a silent follower. I was a silent sister. I said nothing. I just enjoyed just soaking in everybody's perspective, everybody's thoughts, all the theories. That's basically what I would do, and every time I would, hear something, I would run back to the books to see where I could find it, and then read the passage, and then just allow it to, sink in and be like, oh, okay, I see this. And then most of the time I'll hear people say stuff or bring up different theories, and then it'll just leave me with a whole bunch of other questions. I'm like, man, I wonder about this, or I wonder about that. And then I try to think about what the answer could be. And then that would lead me to go back into the books to kind of, read certain passages in different POVs to kind of see if there's something that's in the word that will jump out at me that might, lead me to an answer. Uh, I'm not. I won't sit here and say that I think up like different theories or I'm that crafty. I'm honestly not, but it does allow me to bring up, have questions that kind of come into my brain, and I'm like, okay, so and then I'll try to figure out what the answer might be based on what it is that I've heard or I've read. And it's really interesting to me to see other people's thoughts and perspectives and see how they formulate a lot of the theories that they put out, and where their bases for these theories come from. So that's my A Song of Ice and Fire and Game of Thrones story, and how I became engrossed into this wonderful fandom. I absolutely love it. I love how this one man has created a world where it doesn't matter who you are, where you come from. We share a unique love of such a great story that speaks to um, the human heart, and it speaks to um, our strengths, our weaknesses, um, and it it captivates you in such a way that you just you root for the good guy, or you think is a good guy but might be a bad guy, but or the bad guy you want to hate, but then that bad guy might actually be a good guy. So it's amazing how he was able to put the words on paper to evoke so much emotion, and I absolutely love it. I think it's absolutely wonderful. So um, I don't want to keep rambling on, because I really, really could talk about this for hours, which is probably another reason why I wanted to do start a YouTube channel, so that I can, and hopefully I will be able to continue to make new friends through YouTube, or through any of the other platforms that are available, so that I can talk about one of one of our greatest um, one of the greatest stories that has been put on paper. Anyways, thank you for watching my video. Hopefully you'll come back for my other videos that I plan on putting out. Until then, fear cuts deeper than swords.